Some things are worth waiting for. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for the opportunity today. The message comes from John chapter 2, verse 1 and following, and here's my translation. And on the third day there happened to be a wedding in Cana of Galilee. The mother of Yeshua was there. Yeshua and his disciples were called to the wedding. When wine was lacking, Yeshua's mother says to him, "They don't have any wine." And Yeshua says to her, "What's that to me and you, lady? My hour is not yet come." So his mother says to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." And there were 6 stone water tanks left from the cleansing of the Jews standing by, each containing about 20 gallons. Yeshua says to the servants, "Fill the water tanks with water." And they filled them to the brim. Then he says to them, "Now draw some water and take it to the architriklanos." And they took it. And as the architriklanos tasted the water become wine, and not knowing where it came from, though the servants who drew it knew, the head waiter calls the groom over and says to him, "Everyone else first puts out the good wine, and when they get drunk, the worse. You've kept back the good wine until now." Yeshua did this in Cana of Galilee as the beginning of the signs and displayed his fame, and his disciples believed in him. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. One day, Yeshua is at Bethany beyond Jordan at the tributary of the river, being cleansed with water and praying when the Holy Spirit dove alights on him and remains. Hold on just a second, please. I forgot to turn my camera on. It's on this day that Yochanan the Dunker, who is a prophet well respected by all the people, proclaims him to be the anointed one prophesied to come. His mission, to baptize in the Holy Spirit fire and to become the last blood sacrifice for sin, Yahweh's Lamb. The next day, 2 of Yochanan's disciples hear Yochanan say that Yeshua is Yahweh's Lamb, and they leave Yochanan's company to follow Yeshua, whom they sought. They ask him, "Where are you staying?" And Yeshua replies, "Come and see." These 2 are Yochanan and Andrew. Yeshua takes them to the great prayer stone on the banks of the Jordan tributary where the prophet Yochanan dunks. He's here, where Yeshua was praying, when the dove descended and remained upon him, and where the dunker heard the voice from heaven, "This is my beloved Son." Yochanan and Andros says, feel tremendously privileged to be invited to study with this new teacher, whom the dunker says is the anointed one, whom Israel had awaited for centuries. Yochanan said, "We've waited for him, and you'll see, it was worth the wait." It wasn't easy to get on the way with More, of the sect of the poor. To become his first disciples was a privilege, for he'd been set apart as a special professor, even the son of Elohim. Andros spies his brother Shimon, brings him to the prayer rock, and introduces him to the new master. There are lots of Shimons, including Yeshua's brother, who was also a Shimon. So Yeshua gives this burly Shimon a nickname, Kiphah, after the rock upon which Yeshua prayed as the dove descended and remained, the rock upon which they now recline. Kiphah means rock. Yeshua now has 3 disciples, and 1 is a rock. The next day, Yeshua makes plans to go back to Galilee, his home. He seeks out a Greek named Philippos, an educated business administrator. Philippos is consecrated to Yahweh, having come into the covenant through mikvah. But because he's named after King Philippos, one of the Herods, religious folks just don't trust him. He is a Herodian, they say. That makes no difference to Joshua, for if he's a Herodian, at least he's a baptized, talented, educated Herodian. Joshua finds Philippos and tells him, "Follow me." Now, Yochanan, Andros, Kipha, and Philippos are all from a town on the northeast shore of the Sea of Galilee called Beit Zaydah, which means house of snares, located just outside of Galilee in Etruria. These 4 men are seeking the redemption of Israel, filtering down to the Jordan for vocations up north to be educated. They're not poor paupers. They're not freeloaders with time on their hands. No, they put Yahweh first in their lives already, and now they want to learn how best to do that. And that's why they're there with Yochanan at Bethany beyond Jordan. Philippos takes Joshua over to his mentor, Nathanael, who might today be called a Zionist. Nathanael is a zealot for a free Israel. In his zeal, Nathanael proclaims Joshua to be the king of Israel, a dangerous saying since Herod is no friend to desert prophets, religious zealots, nationalistic Heroes, or future kings, and he had spies everywhere. Now there's silence between Joshua and his newfound disciples. After all, Joshua has been living among the poor for quite some time. Joshua knew lessons might be learned by keeping quiet, meditating on the scriptures, and listening for the voice of the Father. But Philippos breaks the silence. "Sir, what do you want us to do?" Joshua replies, "Do you see those great burdens over there?" Joshua points to his possessions, which amount to a large heap of leather sacks. "Yes, Rabbi, I see those burdens." "Well then," Joshua replies, "cast my burdens upon you and follow." Hesitating, Philippos musters the others, and they take upon themselves the burdens of Joshua. Philippos whispers to Nathanael as he hoists up one particularly heavy burden. "Friend, this sack smells like fish." Andrew breaks in and says, "To me and my brother, friend, fishes smell like money." So this Joshua sets off from this desert oasis in Perea with his 5 new disciples, Yochanan, Andros, Kipha, Philippos, and Nathanael, all religious men, formerly Baptists. And each one has a new burden to carry. Joshua intends to lead them on northward through Perea, transecting the Decapolis, then lead westward across the Jordan Valley into the heart of the Galilee, where Herod Antipas rules. Joshua remains silent on that long, dangerous trek, and with the heavy burdens they carry, his disciples begin to wonder what they're in for. And Philippos, thinking that the hotter it gets, the fishier his burden smells. You see, Philippos is an accountant. He's not used to hard work, fishy smells, or even dirty clothes. Soon the disciples' wonderment turns to frustration. And Yochanan asks Joshua, "Rabbi, where are you going?" And for 3 days, Joshua replies over and over again, "Come and see. We're almost there. It'll be worth the wait." So the 5 would-be disciples trail behind their master over hill and dale, furlong after furlong. "Where he leads me, I will follow." What the disciples don't yet know is that Joshua is on his way to a wedding in Cana in central Galilee. Yeshua might have stayed with Yochanan a little longer, but this event's been on his calendar for over a year. Yeshua's brother, Shimon of Kenah, is the groom. Yeshua's other brothers are also to attend. The eldest, Yaakov, also known as James, who's a priest, comes up from Jerusalem. And there's Yaakov's brother, Yehuda, who took over the family building business when their father Yosef died. And Maria will be there. She's only a few years older than Yaakov and Yehuda. She's the mother of Yeshua and Yosei, another brother. Maria and her stepson, Yehuda, are in charge of the meals, refreshments, libations, and all the arrangements. They're in the house of Maria's son, Shimon bar Yosef of Cana. Weddings, there and then, were quite different from our little ceremonies now. They certainly were not a matter of just two people deciding to get married and then walking away together. The wedding itself was the culmination of long discussions between the two families. The marriage is arranged, the contract agreed upon, the dowry is set, as is the time of the ceremony. The day before the wedding, the bride and groom, they separate, they bathe, they anoint themselves with fragrant oil, and dress in their very best clothing. The bride is to be veiled in public for the entire lengthy affair. Both bride and groom have numerous attendants. The chief of these is the friend of the groom, the architrictolos. Shimon chooses his next elder brother, Yehuda, for the honor and the responsibility, for he has a knack for social events. The festivities begin at nightfall with the procession of Shimon's wedding party to the home of his bride, whose name is Yael, the daughter of Cleopas, also of Cana. The bride's attendants are Yael's family, eagerly awaiting their coming. When they meet, gifts are given, tokens are exchanged, pledges are made, and scripture is recited. Wine in the form of toasts is offered and drunk, one toast after the other, to the bride, to the groom, to the parents, to the prophets, to Moses and Elijah, to George Washington. After the visit, the parties of both bride and groom return to Shimon's home, where the party has already begun without them. Shimon's yard is alight with oil lanterns and decorated as befits a very special occasion. When the bride, groom, and their attendants arrive, guests have already gathered, musicians are playing, and the dancing, talking, storytelling, and the festivities, they might last all night. Wine flows like water. It's free for all who are invited to this first night of the marriage. When all are there who should be, Maria and her helpers serve the late meal and well into the third course. The exuberant Shimon, who's the groom, of course, pops up from his place and calls for the traditional toast. Shimon, with the help of Yehuda's thunderous voice, gets everyone's attention, clears his throat, motions to his intended bride, and offers the traditional wedding pledge, which is, Yael is my wife, and I, Shimon, am her husband from this day forward unto forever. Yael's father, Cleopas, takes the hand of his veiled daughter and raises her from her place. He responds to Shimon's entreaty with words from the story of Tobit, as was traditional. Cleopas cries, "Here she is. Take her in accordance with the Torah of Moses. You are now her kin, and she is yours." Then Cleopas leads the guests in the traditional response. "May the Elohim of heaven keep you safe and give you peace and prosperity." Tobit 7:12. This done, Cleopas reclines near his future son-in-law and whispers, "One day, and you'll have my daughter, and be my only son. And you'll say it has been worth the wait. For after the meal, bride and groom go back to their own homes for the night. The big to-do is in the morning, when all the invited guests come for a wedding banquet, and before the end of the second day, the couple will be officially wed. He brought me to his banqueting table, his banner over me is love. While the first night's wedding party is still in full swing in Cana, Yeshua and his travel partners stagger into Nazareth, to the late Joseph's home, now the home of Maria, Yehuda, his wife Deborah, their son Yaakov II, and Yosef, Maria's youngest son. Nobody's home right now, but the family goats and Yeshua, Yochanan, Andros, Kipha, Philippos, and Nathanael lay their burdens down, draw water and wash up, then settle in for the night on the roof of the house. Yeshua is tired, being the oldest of them, but the young Kipha won't let him sleep. He says, "You haven't told us anything about the kingdom, the one Yochanan was talking about." Yeshua takes a breath, and in sleepy wisps, he tells the story. The kingdom is like a king who throws a marriage party for his son. He sends slaves to call on those invited, but now, they have excuses and they won't come. The king sends more slaves, saying, "Tell those we've invited, look, the king's already got the dinner on waiting for you." But this time, most of the invited may make jokes. One goes to clean his barn, another goes to his business. Others rob and kill the king's messengers. The king is enraged, so he immediately sends troops to destroy those murderers and burn their cities. Then the king tells his slaves, "Those invited aren't worthy of hospitality. Go into the streets and bring anyone you find." So these slaves bring in both bad and good until the fellowship hall is bursting. Should I say that again? Because people need to hear this. These slaves bring in both bad and good until the fellowship hall is bursting. When the king looks at his guests, he spies who else but that farmer who said he wouldn't come, wearing the same clothes he cleaned the barn in. Well, this farmer has no respect. He hasn't even bothered to dress for the occasion. The king says to the farmer, "Friend, how do you get in here with smelly, dirty, indecent clothing?" The farmer has no excuse. Then the king says to his personal guard, "Tie him up and throw him out into the night where they weep and gnash." Then the king adds, "Of the many we first invited, few chose to come. Is that as it should be?" After prayer, Yeshua says, "Get some sleep. We'll be leaving first thing in the morning." Kipha is already asleep. The story did him in. But Yeshua has one more question to answer, the same one he's answered 50 times. For Philippos asks, "Where are we going and when will we get there?" See, Philippos' shoulders, they're sore from his heavy burden, and he can't get the smell of fish off his filthy clothes, no matter how much water he rubs in. Already half asleep, though, Yeshua replies for the 51st time, "Come and see. It'll be worth the wait." But Philippos wonders if when Yeshua spoke of the farmer with the filthy, smelly clothes, he meant him.
we're back. You are listening to Jackson Snyder Presents and the old friend Bogdan G. Shumkov. We'll be right back after the following messages.
Joshua and his 5 disciples are already on the road when the sun comes up. After get up, Joshua only gives the disciples one more commandment. Put on the best clothes you have. The disciples remember the story of the night before and wonder if they're going to some kind of initiation. They don't know where they're going. After another hour's walk, they reach the village of Cana and Shimon's house, right next to the synagogue, where they meet people in the yard, some sleeping, some talking, a few are still drinking. We're going to a wedding, Andrew wonders solemnly. Nathanael bursts out, the Dunker would never permit us to go to a wedding. He isn't much for fun. But Joshua replies, all of you, take your burdens to the kitchen, then relax. This is my brother's house, and he's getting married today. Now you understand why you all dressed up. We'll start our training here at my brother's wedding banquet, and if you have the ears to hear, we'll also end our training at a wedding banquet in the kingdom of the sky. Come ye sinners, poor and needy. The kitchen area in the back of Shimon's house is full of activity. Maria, Yochanan, and Shalome, along with Mrs. Cleopas and other women from the community. They're preparing the high point of the wedding festivities, that is, the wedding banquet. Unlike weddings of today, the wedding banquet in Joshua's day was in the morning. It was breakfast, and it lasted all day long and on into the night. Joshua makes his way to the kitchen to greet his mother, sisters, and his sleepy half-brother Yehuda. Happy greetings are exchanged, and the kitchen staff recognizes that Joshua is not merely a local yokel anymore. Now he's a master teacher of the Torah, and his clerical robe reflects his new profession. Joshua points out the leather sacks that his disciples lugged 3 days to Cana kitchen. I've not come empty-handed. I brought 5 new mouths to feed. Yay, those guys standing out there. It seems I already have some students. What do you think of that? So I brought provisions with me. Behold. Yehuda opens a sack. Here are fresh dates and some figs. He opens another. More dates and figs, what do you know? And raisins and currants. Maria opens a sack. Here are gourds and squashes. Yehuda says, and here's a whole bag of spelt and barley. Yosei has opened a bag. And here's rice. We never eat rice. The biggest sack, the one carried by Philippos, is finally opened, and everyone in the kitchen is amazed. Mrs. Cleopas cries, oh my, do you know how long it's been since I've seen fresh fish? Yehuda says, Yeshua, a whole bag of fresh fish? How did you travel all the way from Perea and keep the fish fresh? Yeshua replies, brother, fish conservation is just one of the many skills I learned down on the Jordan. Meanwhile, out in the yard, Yeshua's hungry disciples make themselves comfortable for the first time in a long time. And Philippos notices that the foul smell of spoiled fish has completely disappeared from his clothing, his hair, and hands. He's relieved, but wonders what's happened to the stench. Could it be a miracle? Fish is a staple of the Canaanians' diet. But Cana was too far inland for fresh fish. They ate salt fish, dried fish, pickled fish, smoked fish. Fresh fish that made it there went to rich people, mostly foreigners, mostly Greeks. Yosef runs from the kitchen, through the house and into the yard. Hey, everybody, we've got fresh fish. Yeshua brought fresh fish. This announcement brings a great deal of applause. And Yosef notices that the crowd is increasing greatly moment by moment. Judas priest, did you say Yeshua is here? Howls Shimon, his brother. Shimon tells Yosef to go next door to the assembly house and get Yaakov. Yaakov's in there on his knees as usual, praying for the conversion of sinners at the banquet, even though this isn't Shabbat. While Yosef makes his way through the house and kitchen, past the stone water jars to the back entrance of the synagogue, Shimon and his soon-to-be father-in-law, Cleopas, make for the kitchen to see Yeshua, Shimon's closest relative. Now, young Yosef finds his eldest brother, Yaakov, praying in the sanctuary. The youth abruptly interrupts the elder. Brother, the bridegroom is here. Come out to meet him. And Yeshua is here too. But Yaakov is not in a festive mood. Go back, boy. I'll meet the bridegroom when I finish my prayers for the hopeless sinners out there in our brother's front yard. Yaakov, he's a special kind of priest, dedicated by his father from birth. Yaakov has never tasted wine, nor has he ever been around wine-bibbers or sinners. He prays for them, but he doesn't hang out with them. He's never seen eye to eye with his younger half-brother, Yeshua, a spoiled little snot who ran off and joined up with the VEY in the desert. He believes his brother, the Moreh, may be a heretic. Yaakov will come out when he's good and ready, not before. For he has a little surprise for the sinners in the yard next door. He knows his brother Yehuda keeps the reserve wine for the wedding in the assembly house kitchen. Well, 3 days ago, Yaakov sold that wine to a temple Jew in Sepphoris, and now he's certain they'll run out tonight, hopefully right after the wedding vows. When they've run out of wine, that's when I'll come out, Yaakov plots. The wedding banquet, it's served a little late, now that there's fish, but nobody minds because there's plenty of snacks and wine to fill in the cracks and plenty of time to nap and soon plenty of everything for several days or even a week. Nobody minds but Yaakov Helfe Bar Yosef, who gets back on his knees and keeps praying. It's me, O Lord. The banquet goes on all day, course after course. The most popular dish, of course, is the fish poached with raisins, currants, and curry. There are over 100 people in attendance, all dressed in their best. Songs are sung, stories told, riddles are riddled, and the couple to be married is blessed. By nightfall, the lamps are again lit so that everybody knows to get ready for the big moment. The final toasts to the couple, to the parents, to the prophets, etc. As the toastmaster, as the head waiter of the feast, Yehuda's been busy with guests all day. Yehuda's been lighting torches all day, which we'll hear about in the next segment of the story. And Maria, the mothers, kept the kitchen going relentlessly. After all, Maria knows that Shimon may be her only son who will marry. For Yeshua has taken a vow of celibacy, and Maria is determined to keep young Yosei home as long as possible. "Yosei," she calls, "take Deborah and your sisters and get some of the wine out of the synagogue. It's time for the great toast of marriage, and find out if your brother Yaakov is dead or alive in there." The quartet takes a lantern into the assembly house kitchen. They don't find the wine, but they do find Yaakov asleep or dead in there at the altar rail. "Wake up, big brother," says Yosei. Yaakov replies, "I wasn't asleep, brother. I was just resting my lips from so much praying and my knees from so much kneeling." Yosei is panicking. "They're ready for the toast of marriage. The wine was right here, brother. What have you done with it?" Yaakov says, "Remember what wine did to Noah? And the line of Canaan was cursed forever." Yosei presses on. "I said, where's the wine, my brother the priest?" Yaakov replies, "Remember the wisdom of Solomon, brother. Wine is a mocker, a strong drink, a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise." But young Yosei is ready this time. "And you, sir, remember the psalm. Yahweh brings forth wine from the earth to gladden the hearts of men. Anyway, mother wants that wine now." "It is gone, little brother. But consider not the loss of wine, but the gain of a new steeple on this tabernacle," snickers Yaakov. Yosei cries, "You sold it? But it's time for the great toasts. What shall we do?" Yaakov the priest instructs his little brother, "Go out and ask that holy man in your kitchen what to do. I hear Yeshua preserves fish now. Perhaps he can also make wine to gladden men's hearts." Deborah, Yehuda's wife, snaps, "Yaakov, if you weren't a priest and I weren't a woman, I'd slap the prayers right off your mustache." The quartet rushes out of the synagogue and back to the smoky kitchen. Deborah doesn't want the news of no wine to ruin the high point of the marriage, so she says to Yosei, "Tell your mother." Yosei whispers to Mother Maria, "The wine's gone, Mother. Yaakov cashed it in. Will you ask your other son who brought the fish if he has some wine among his things?" Yeshua is quickly located asleep in the storage shed. Maria wakes him. "Son, they're ready to do the great toasts." Yeshua croaks, "So what does that mean to us, lady?" Maria retorts, "You know they can't be married without the great toasts, and there is no wine." She calls the servants over as Yeshua stretches his bones and commands, "Do whatever he tells you." At the same moment, Yeshua's disciples sneak around the corner. They're going to have it out with him. Yeshua looks over to the assembly house and spies the water pots used for washing members. "Fill those with water." Maria reiterates the command to everyone in the kitchen. Hurry up, do what he says." Before Kipha and Andros can say a cross word, young Yosei grabs Philippos and says, "You get over to the well. You, get the buckets. Get these water pots filled up fast." So disciples, men, servants, and women form a human conveyor from the well to the pots, and in short order they transport over 100 gallons. Now, that is a miracle in itself worth waiting for. A long-bearded head pops out of the synagogue window shouting, "Hey, you can't do that. You're not on the synagogue board. Stay away from those tanks." It's Yaakov, out of his piety for the moment. Yeshua shouts back, "Why, hello, big brother. I didn't know you were up from Jerusalem. Peace, love, dove, in the name of the Father." Nobody out front can see or hear what's happening in the back, but since the sun's down, those striving to complete Yeshua's mission hear the crowd clamoring for the marriage couple. Shimon, 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 Yael, 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 Shimon and Yael, hurrah, the toast, the toast, the toast, hurrah. Yeshua says to the servant, draw out some water and take it to Yaakov. The wind is out of Yaakov's sails, and as the servant lifts the cup to his huge mustache, Yaakov merely smells it. Why, this is not water. It smells like fish. Ripe fish. Who are you trying to fool anyway? You've turned the water into fish. Good for you. The shocked servant takes the cup back from Yaakov, and the disciple Philippos now knows where the scent went from his clothes, either to the water or to Yaakov's gigantic mustache. Yehuda finally rushes into the kitchen. Where's the reserve wine? They're all out of wine up front, and they're clamoring for a toast. Haven't you gotten the wine out of the assembly house yet? But Yeshua interrupts, speaking to the servant. Servant, let my brother Yehuda taste the cup. And Yehuda tastes. Then he gulps the remainder of the cup. Why, this isn't the slosh I ordered. This is far better. It's your wine, isn't it, Yeshua? Thank you, brother, for the fruit, the grain, the fish, and now there's fine wine. Let's get it to our guests so our little brother can get married. The lack of wine caused quite a commotion and delayed the wedding toasts, but Yehuda took the wine to Shimon's guests. As he did, he thought, we're a little late, but this wine is worth the wait. Thank you, Yeshua. Yeshua's hands were kind hands. Back at the party, the new wine is distributed by the servants, and Yehuda proudly leads the toast to the bride, to the groom, to the bride's parents, to the groom's mother, to the groom's family, to Yeshua and his disciples, to marriage, to life, l'chaim. After lengthy toasts, Shimon bar Yosef the Canaanian wraps his prayer garment around both himself and his wife, Yael bat Cleopas, and with the 12 bridal attendants, Shimon escorts his new wife to the mansion deep within the private recesses of the house. Shimon and Yael are now officially married. In the mansion, in the added room to the house, Yael's finally removed her veil, displaying her youthful beauty to her new husband. But the attendants stay outside to guard the door all night, lest the evil spirit Asmodeus approach. Tobit 3:8. Now, with the wedded couple in their chamber, the entire wedding crowd begins to sing the famous blessing from Fiddler on the Roof. May the Lord protect and defend you. May he always shield you from shame, etc. The marriage is complete now, but the party, it's just beginning. It continues for 5 more days and is remembered for 50 years, and even by the Romans, which we'll learn in the next segment. Yeshua and his 5 disciples stay the whole time. Now, these disciples from Bethsaida know for certain that Yeshua is the king, as Nathanael claimed all along. This on account of the changing of water to wine. Yeshua also acquires 3 other disciples during the wedding. His brothers, Yehuda, Jude, Shimon the Canaanian, or Simon the Zealot, and Yosef bar Maria, little Joseph. He also gets the respect, if not the admiration, of his eldest brother Yaakov, that sour old priest, whose massive mustache would smell like ripe fish for the next 7 years till all things be completed. They all did so well together at the wedding that they left the mess with Mrs. Cleopas and Maria, Yaakov, Yehuda, Deborah, and Yaakov the Less, Yeshua, Shimon and Yael, Yosei, Yochanan, Andros, Kipha, Philippos, and Nathaniel all go vacation at Kafar Nachum seaside until Passover. Only Yeshua knows what future triumphs and terrors are in store for these first believers. But for the time being, they soak up the spring sun of the beach so happily together, eating fresh fish from the nets of Andrew and Kipha, telling stories and listening to parables about fish and fishermen, life, death, the kingdom, and eternity. But the sound of great assurance is in Yeshua's voice as he promises them for the 59th time, just wait and see. It will be worth it all. To see if it will be worth it all, wait until the next installment. It will be worth waiting for. Amen.